Our next panel is up, and I'm going to introduce Katie Dellinger. Katie grew up near the Illinois-Wisconsin border in Rockton, Illinois, and graduated from the University of Missouri in 2009. She's filled a number of roles at DTN, including nearly 5 years as markets editor, where she covered commodities, markets, and marketing strategies, in addition to USDA report lockups. She spent several years as the executive producer for RFD TV's daily news programs, Market Day Report, and Rural Evening News. Now she's back at DTN, this time as the farm business editor, where her reporting focuses on tax and estate planning, farmland values, healthcare, and other issues that affect farmers' bottom line. So, Katie, thank you, and I'll let you introduce our next two panelists.
Thank you, Julie. Is there another one over there? Well, I can just use this one. Thank you, Julie, for that introduction. My name's Katie Dellinger. I'm really excited to be hosting this panel today. I think everything involving AI is really kind of a buzzword right now. It's not the first buzzword we've known in this space of technological advancement, and I'm really excited to hear what our panelists have to say. So I'm going to jump in with the introductions. To my left, your right, is Jeremy Gredicke. He is the Global Head of IT and Digital Strategy at Syngenta. He is also in charge, sort of as the Chief Information Officer of their vegetables and flowers business. In his career, he's championed the integration of technology into agricultural practices, leveraging data, analytics, IoT, and data science to enhance the sustainability and productivity of farming. One thing I learned about Jeremy in our pre-interviews is that he's also a Nebraska farm boy, and that does influence a lot of what he does in his day-to-day work. He likes to think about how these advancements actually work for the farms that they serve. And then to his left, your right, is Morgan Gunther. She's the Enterprise Integration and Engagement Lead for Walmart's Customer Engagement Services, where she translates strategy into connection, clarity, and momentum across 30,000 plus associated global organization. She oversees 4 key teams, including communications and engagement, executive escalations, integration and consolidation, and the CES Experience Lab, which is critical to driving alignment, storytelling, and scalable transformation across the enterprise. One of the things I'm looking forward to discussing with you two today is the connection of artificial intelligence from the very beginning of the supply chain, from the seed and the inputs, all the way down to the customer experience at the very end of that supply chain. We've got a lot of changes happening, but really, a lot of it's not new, as we'll get into. So I'm going to start off here with you, Jeremy. Tell us a little bit more about your role at Syngenta, how you got to that position, and what you do, because it sounds like you wear a lot of hats.
Yeah, I need to have one that has multiple logos on it, I guess. But great to be here, everybody. As Katie mentioned, I'm a farm kid from Nebraska, and so brothers in those. And that's really what got me started on this a long time ago. One of my first entrepreneurial jobs was, for those that remember, a bean buggy that drove up and down the fields and spraying Roundup on bad weeds and trying to get rid of those. So I've been in the ag business my whole life. I've been a technology junkie ever since then. And so my role at Syngenta is a couple-fold. One, as Katie mentioned, I lead basically our digital and IT infrastructures for our veg and flowers businesses. So keep eating your Brussels sprouts, your watermelon, peppers, tomatoes. Thank you for that. And then I lead our data science for computational agronomy, which is our machine learning, AI, computer vision, remote sensing work for our CropWise digital brand that you'll see out there in the consumer side. And then I also work with our precision application world with our crop protection units to really get the right products from a chemistry standpoint, biologicals or synthetics on the field. So looking forward to the conversation.
Morgan, let's start talking a little bit about your role too. What do you do at Walmart and how did you get there? And you also have some agriculture connections, even though you don't consider yourself a farm girl.
So my role at Walmart, the simplest way is 1-800-Walmart. I mean, there's a lot of engagement words whenever you hear my bio, but 1-800-Walmart or anytime you need help, that's who you reach out to as our group. How I got here was a long-winded story that we don't have time for. But I grew up in Osceola County, Florida, so I was in 4-H. I grew up around all the ranches, and through marriage, I'm related to some that run some of the agricultural stations down in Okeechobee. So I've never been far from ag. And at Walmart, we are at the center. We're not an ag company, but we definitely connect the producers to the consumers.
Okay, so Jeremy, how does AI play into the agricultural ecosystem?
Yeah, so I think real quick, let's define AI. One quick thing on this is it's been around for a long time. I think we all know this, but there are two things going on, and there's more than two, but I'm going to simplify it to two, which is the traditional machine learning, data science that has been going on and continues to go on for quite some time. So your descriptive AI on that nature. And then you have what has now really come to light, especially in the last year and a half, 2 years, is generative AI in that component. And so how do those two fit into the agricultural world? Descriptive AI, as we've been using for quite some time, we use that through machine learning and that nature. Example, we have a technology that we call NEMA Digital that we detect, nematodes on the ground from space. And through data science, time series analysis, and remote sensing, we can tell where the nematodes are attacking soybeans around the countryside, and then help growers apply the right crop protection products to eliminate that problem. So that's a traditional, machine learning kind of descriptive AI standpoint. On the other side, on the generative AI, which I think I was hearing the tail end of the last conversation, things like GPT, Grok 4, Gemini, Claude, those type of models, these large language models, as well as even in the vision side for generative images. That's where we see now we have a CropWise AI program. And this is where, when I was an agronomist or crop consultant, I had a milk cart in the back of my truck with the Green Book and other product literature guide that I all of a sudden went to Google, then you just typed into Google and get me that information. Well, now with the large language models, we can bring that together and work that in a chat interface. And so agronomists and route to markets and channel partners can gain that information much faster. And so those are some examples of where that happens and many more.
It's interesting you say that, because at Walmart, especially in the contact center space, a customer will contact us when something goes wrong often. No one's going to contact 1-800-Walmart to say, hey, I had a great experience. But what they do contact us is when something goes wrong, and we're able to do the same thing. We're taking the LLMs and looking at the customer contact, we're looking at the data, we're looking at the information, what they're saying to us, and we hear 3 different customer issues, but by leveraging ML, we're able to pinpoint it down to the FC, the PDC, some of those supply chain facilities, right down to the supplier, to be able to pinpoint where the customer problem is originating from.
So Walmart isn't an ag or tech company in the way that we think about it as a consumer. So where do you really operate into this ecosystem of the consumer?
We're right in the middle. We are the ones who are allowing customers, both in rural America and urban areas, to buy the products they need to feed their families. And it's every type of customer. It's those who need the organic products because they have very, very specific dietary needs. And then it's also those who need bulk products. I was at a store in the Northeast about a year ago, and it was interesting to see the amount of bulk going out of those stores. So it's everything from urban to big cities to rural.
Okay. Now, both of you work with different types of customers, Jeremy largely with a lot of farmers and Morgan with a wide variety of consumers. How is AI interacting or changing your relationships with those customers, and how is that, do you see that influencing maybe buying or purchasing patterns?
Yeah, so again, from a Syngenta standpoint, and really most of the input providers, we're on the inside of that, going to the growers, and then they're harvesting the crops and shipping them off into the supply chain, right? And so really, I would say as of now, we have not seen, and I really don't forecast a change in the relationship side of this. I think all of us know ag is a heavy relationship standpoint. What you're going to see change is the skill set profile that it interacts with the growers. And so especially in the sales domain, you're going to have agronomists and sales reps that use the AIs to understand better and in more real time. So a couple things that we're working on is just even demand and orders. So as orders come in for volume of seed or crop protection, what does that go against our demand volume, right? What do we have in inventory to meet those needs? That gap's gonna close. And in the ag supply chain, it's a really long supply chain, right, that we deal with from an input standpoint. And so you're gonna see that access to information. The other downside, I'd say, to ag is we're in a shrinking population. As a whole, there's less growers, there's less agronomists, there's less channel partners as a whole, and and the acres aren't changing. We're still covering the same acres that are out there. So you're upskilling the teams and the individuals to do more and cover more customers and still maintain strong relationships.
I would say it's very similar. We, from a day-to-day basis, are seeing the world change, but I think what we get is more real-time data, more geolocation data, and more trend and analysis. So whether it be the demand that customers are driving related to specific produce or specific meat and dairy types, or if there are, again, issues within the supply chain, we're getting more information earlier and quicker, whether it be through products like Luminate, which our suppliers use day in and day out to get customer data, or through our sourcing office. So there's a couple days that we can get it, but it's quicker, faster, and more accurate.
So Morgan, you're head of customer engagement services. How do you ensure that rural America isn't left behind in this AI transformation that's happening in the economy?
I think the easiest way that I think about not leaving the customer behind is AI is here to enhance human ingenuity. It's there so our agents over in customer engagement services are able to make a personal connection, because most folks still call in. They're not using the chatbot, even though it's there. And if they do use the chatbot, they still choose to talk to a human. So when I talk about agents in that space, it's a human. So in rural America, since we have over 5,000 stores, and one of those stores is within 10 miles of the average American, we are the sole provider of those goods and services. And when they have to contact an agent, we're using AI to make that experience more personal and more intentional, so that they're not having to do those mundane tasks, and we can focus on the problem, because they're an hour away from the closest store, or they're 30 minutes and they can't get there regularly. So in those interactions, it's making it more meaningful, impactful, and efficient for those customers.
Jeremy, I know you saw you nod your head there about people not wanting to interact with the chatbots nearly as much. Do you have some thoughts you'd like to share on that and how your customers engage with your AI tools?
Unfortunately, I see it as a generational component, because the younger farmers for now, all they want to, I don't know how much my sales teams do business over WhatsApp and SMS text. That is where a lot of the business gets done, especially with that low, and I'm not talking old, 45 down, that's where the sales gets happen. So that chat interface is a natural ecosystem, in a sense, a way of interacting. I think the piece on, leaving the Midwest behind on tech, I don't see that happening. I mean, it will happen to some individuals, don't get me wrong, but use the old way this is played out. Those that adopted the tractor over the horse faster moved and grow faster than that. The ones that adopted biotechnology over growers that didn't, they moved faster in the scale. So the individuals in the rural economy that adopt technology will move forward. Don't get me wrong, somebody will just not adopt because they so choose to. It won't be because they can't have access to it. They will all have equal access and opportunity. It comes down to the pure choice. And so, I mean, if you look at it, ag's been more advanced than even the consumer. We had driverless tractors before Tesla and everybody else put it into a consumer market. And so we have full autonomy equipment now out there in the market as well. Ag is highly technically advanced, and I'll get on a little bit of a soapbox here talking to most of the media crew here. Please tell that story, that ag is not a pitchfork and bibs. We may still wear bibs, but tractors are driving themselves. That's the story that I think actually really has to be told, is we're not laggards. We're accelerators, and we've been there way faster than the consumer population. It's just not told.
And there are a lot of farmers or different people that we will interact with in our careers that are skeptical of some of these technologies, that are slower to maybe adopt some of these. What are some of the first steps you would give to them to think about, to maybe change their thinking, or to think about AI, artificial intelligence, these advanced tools differently?
The first steps is try it, right? I think ag is that classic try it before you buy it mentality. And it's a long cycle. The ag tech firms that we've gone through over the last 10 years missed that step. That the ag economy is built on trust. And when you have that, they adopt your technology when there's value and clear value. If you look at any of the technologies that have been adopted at scale, I'm talking auto steer, genetics, those are things that have made growers more operationally efficient and have put time back into their pockets. And everything we've talked about with AI is about accelerating yourself, 10xing yourself, making you more efficient. So this is on a natural trajectory of adoption, but you got to try it at the end of the day.
I was going to say, I think about data analysis, whether it be in the corporate world like I am, but I think about my father-in-law through marriage, and I'm not married, but people in the family are. He was early on in the cattle operations doing some really amazing stuff within the cattle and testing space, and the amount of science and research and brain power and specialized work that needed to go into having data scientists and all those folks around to analyze the data was there. Now there are large language models and different types of machine learning that are able to do that work and make the research faster and smarter and better. So this is all off the record. This is speaking from experience. But I just think about it that way, and it's incredible. And the same thing goes for Walmart, is tell the stories. Like, I can tell stories all day about how we found that there was this produce issue within an area in Florida, and we were able to surface that back. But the only way we did that is through AI. So showing how fast you can get that data to eliminate the problem is how you get the adoption, is through storytelling.
That sounds to me like it would have really big implications in the case of food recalls, specifically.
Yeah.
And the ways that can help protect your consumers when there is an issue.
Of course, the press office often contacts us in the contact center, so
Yeah.
they're always there.
At the tail end of the last panel, we heard a little discussion about whether AI is here to take your job. Morgan, do you see AI replacing people in Walmart's system, its store workers, or its storytellers, or how could that influence Walmart as a business?
I will say this until someone can prove me wrong. AI is there to enhance human ingenuity, whether it be from storytellers and media professionals, where you're inputting your entire story and saying, give me a better tagline, storyline, or it is in our next-gen supply chain facilities where the vast majority of the facility is automated, but because of the way that automation has transformed the work, we now have a broader associate set that can come work in that space that wasn't able to before. And off the record, we were able to have folks have ADA related accommodations that are now able to go into those facilities. So they're not taking away jobs, they're actually creating opportunities, and we see that in many ways across the board.
So Jeremy, what do you think is the biggest transformation in artificial intelligence over the last 5 years? And then what do you think's next for AI and ag?
Next, that's a crazy, I'll get that wrong, but we'll give it a shot. So I think the big thing that's changed in the last 2 to 3 years with AI is, so I'll go back to my college years to tell you the story of how this plays out. So when I was in college as an agronomist, I learned about waters, insects, disease, soils, like they're all individual domains. And as an agronomist, you have to learn all of those components. And then you went out into the real world and put them all together, right? You stored them in your neural net, your head, all the language and information. Then you went out and you walked fields and you looked at bugs and you processed it. You looked at the yield potential. You talked to growers. You took all those inputs in and you used the perception technologies of your eyes, your fingers, just your knowledge, ribbiting out soil to know how much moisture is. So that's literally what we do as humans, and now we're doing it as with the AI. And so now I can take, with artificial intelligence, all those individual domain sciences and combine them under one intelligence, a neural net, a transformer neural net from the technical standpoint, and add even perception technologies of computer vision, touch through the robotics. There's physical AI, right, and software AI. So the physical AI is robotics and those type of natures. And so through LiDAR is like a touch. I can get size, shape, dimensions, and those things. And so I'm really combining all of that. Where in the past, we had to solve all these individual domains. I put a soil moisture sensor in the ground, it'd tell me what the water is, and then I'd give you an algorithm for irrigation. Now I can have the dependency on what's my yield potential to know if I should put more water on or not. I'm able to combine the domain sciences. Ag and really the life sciences are highly beneficial to this type of technology because it's more complex. The more complex the system is, the more benefit you will see from artificial intelligence because you can bring those together. The scale piece, you could be an agronomist in Georgia and understand high nighttime heats, but when that climate moves into Nebraska and Iowa, you may not have that experience. But with artificial intelligence and knowledge sharing, I can move that faster. And so I can make that agronomist in Central and Iowa and Nebraska upskilled faster because that's been experienced somewhere else in the climate.
Morgan, do you maybe want to pull out the crystal ball and the future of AI? And we were talking earlier, 5 years might be a little bit too long of a time horizon here.
It's hard to look past 12 to 18 months. If someone has that crystal ball, please let me know. I was supposed to be independently wealthy in a former life, so I would love to have that fortune. But for us, it's a matter of meeting the demand quicker. So through AI, ML, Gen AI, Agentic AI, all of the AIs at this point, we're able to meet the demand faster. But I think now its crystal ball is how do we ensure that regardless of the consumer, their adoption rate, that we're meeting them where they are. So we're not over-indexing on the AI and still keeping the human component while still meeting the demands and the needs of the business.
I think the piece I'd add onto this is that there's a saying that you'll underestimate what you can do in 1 year or overestimate what you can do in 1 year and underestimate what you will do in 10 years. And this is fundamentally the problem we will see with AI. We will all overestimate what we think we can accomplish with AI, whether it's a large language model or generative vision, and what we can accomplish in the next year or two. But we will dramatically underestimate what we will accomplish in the next 10 years. This is fundamentally the problem, is that I think that the trough of disillusionment, right? We will hit that. We still haven't hit that yet, in my opinion, within the AI realm, and this will happen. And so automation is a big piece. The physical AI in agriculture, or the robotics, will you see it at 90 million acres of corn being farmed fully robotic? No, right? That's not going to happen in the next 5 years. But that will start coming, and in the next 10, my nephew that's coming back to the farm, like, it's really hard to comprehend. You put 20 years on this, what it's going to look like. Because my dad, over his career, he went from a 6-row planter to 2 24s and auto steer in his generation of farming. What is my nephew going to do in that same time frame? I think we will completely underestimate.
That was going to be my question. What are they going to do? How are they going to teach that? How are you going to prepare for the future when it's changing so rapidly? So for the future farmers and the future ag professionals, how do you get to that point?
Maybe that's something for our ACT students to work on and to give us the answer for. Report back next year. Well, with that, I'm going to open it up to the audience for questions. I promise not to hog all of them to myself, so please look around for a microphone, throw your hands up, and let me know if you've got a question for our panelists. Anybody? Bueller?
This makes my life easier because I don't have to say no comment, defer to the press office. But I think Jeremy might have a few.
Well, if you're not going to ask a question, I will. Come on, guys, we're journalists. All right. Talking to both of you, you speak so fluently on artificial intelligence, all the different types. What did it take for you to learn and become the master at this job?
Trial and error. Working with the technology, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't, analyzing the different use cases and making a mostly educated guess on what is going to have the most impact for the business. using some data science models to determine what's going to have the most impact for the business, but it's using it, being a first adopter. Walmart, we're not first adopters of much, but in the customer service space, we had the opportunity to go deep and go early within specifically generative AI and agentic AI. So we took the bull by the horns, for lack of a better term there, but use it early and be willing to make mistakes within controlled environments, because until you push publish, especially for those who are in media, you can revise. So it's the same thing with pilots within the Walmart space. We can pilot in very small controlled environments. Dallas is one space we do that. And if we can do it, then we'll make sure it doesn't hit the chain before it goes wrong. So test it early, test it often.
Yeah, I'll ditto the test early. I mean, when ChatGPT came out, within 2 weeks, I set up a hackathon with my AI teams, and I said, build me Jarvis for the Modern Marvel crew fans. I said, literally, build that. And so we just trial and error and try to see what we could do. So yes, get your hands dirty, get into it, trial and error. I think beyond that, though, you just have to have a continuing education mindset, bar none. I'm not an AI scientist by any means, but the superpower I can think of is I have my family farm. I know what they need from a day-to-day working life. I know what the computer scientists can do, and pulling those things together is really important, because that's when value is created. Otherwise, you just create fancy toys that nobody uses at the end of the day.
I think value creation is something that we've talked about a lot, is how do you use it? There can be mountains of data, but if you don't have good data and don't have a way to train it and learn from it, it's ultimately not very useful. How are you managing your data at Walmart?
I have a front seat view to managing data at Walmart. Was formerly part of the global tech org doing something similar, but for us, it's narrowing down what data needs to be most important. So all data is important, but when we think about those critical data elements, whether it be the order number, the items within an order number, those things that are cycling back through to our consumers and our suppliers, those are the things that I am most concerned with within our business. Is, do we have the right items? Do we have the right order number? Is it flowing back to the right location? So those critical data elements to me are number one, and it's having the right people in place. I too am not a data scientist by any means. My degrees have nothing to do with retail, which is not surprising if you know me at all, but I do know how to find the right people. So when it comes to data governance, it's the same thing. And when it comes to using that data, it's having the right analysts, the right reporting, the right data scientists, and the right thinkers in place to do that work.
So Jeremy, one thing farmers are always a little bit concerned about and leery about is sharing their data. How does Syngenta approach that and maybe make benefit from that sharing of operational data?
Yeah, I'm on the other side of this coin. The growers that I've ran into in my 20 plus years of this, it's a minority that are not willing to share compared to the majority. And the piece, an old colleague I used to work with, the coin he always would say is a fair trade. And all companies have their EULAs. We follow data privacy laws, data sovereignty, data governance. All of that is standard. I mean, it's all legally that we have to follow. But I think you need to step back from that and understand what are you actually providing in value to the grower for that. So if they're sharing a yield data monitor from that because you've connected with their JD Ops Center or whatever, like, what are you providing back for that, right? Am I providing productivity zones that he now can adjust his variable rate seeding maps next year to make sure he maybe saves some money on seed costs? Like, that's that value exchange that you have to be able to provide. And that's just fundamental to trust with the growers.
Any other questions from the audience?
I've got one.
All right.
In the last panel, it was mentioned to, Eric Braun had the quote by Amy Webb, which I don't think you got the chance to hear, but she mentioned approaching the use of AI as a strategic compass. And so I was wondering, if you think about it in that way, what is your North Star in adopting and implementing AI across your teams?
I wouldn't say it's a North Star, but earlier you were talking about the use of computer vision and the idea of the digital twin and this planogram. And the new chief product officer for Walmart was talking about how AI can work as a digital twin and a planogram for the customer experience to test and iterate and move forward and figure out the future. So I think for us, it's how are we simulating and how are we testing for the future using AI more largely, and how are we doing this digital planogram or digital twin to help iterate for the future. So it's not quite a North Star, but for us, it's all around planning for the future and planning for the efficient use of the data and the information we have to have a better experience more largely.
So I'm going to take a little bit, maybe different angle on this, but don't make technology your North Star, right? Make sure whatever your North Star, like us, bring plant science to life, right? We want to make sure that as an organization, we're bringing value to the grower and better genetics, better crop protection, better biologicals, better digital tools. That's our fundamental North Star. For you guys, maybe it's, creating great information and content for your users, right? What's your North Star? The technology is now enabling you to deliver on that North Star, is the way I would frame it. I think the thing that you got to think through is on certain technologies, and you can go back to the 90s internet bubble and boom, right? They fundamentally just changed the way of working. I don't think it was a North Star to everybody get online. It was just fundamentally changing how your way of working is. AI is going to do this same thing through automation, agents, physical and software AI. It's just fundamentally going to change, for everybody, how we operate. And so I just caution, don't make tech the North Star, but when there's a transformation tech, understand how it's going to affect your North Star of your individual business.
You're not wrong. For us, you said it way better than I did, but we're people-led and tech-powered, helping people save money and live better. So tech is powering the people for a better experience. So we're in a very similar boat there.
And so with that perspective on having technology work for you and empowering people, how, one of the things we heard from the last panel was how they were training and protecting the AI that they were developing for their enterprises. So how is the training, the technology making it work for you, or adjusting your work systems to take advantage of what it can have? How is it working for businesses the scale of Syngenta and Walmart?
I can speak to a recent announcement that was about a week ago, give or take, around 4 super agents that are now powering a good bit of what we think about from an AI perspective at Walmart. There's Sparky, which is going to be customer focused. There's Marty, which is going to be supplier and supply chain and merchant focused. And then we have an associate focused, our employee focused super agent, and then obviously a developer agent to help our tech and our technologists move faster and smarter. So as we're thinking about framing up the larger piece, it's all around capitalizing on the work that we're doing and using these super agents to then power these more micro agents to do some of those tasks that you're talking about.
So from our standpoint, I think from the training and components, so I want to get one thing I think that we have to all understand, and you all understand this, I'm just reiterating it. Accuracy is a big thing for ag, right? If I tell you to spray X herbicide at X rate at X timing, I can't hallucinate on that, right? I've got to make sure it's right. And so from a training and component, like you can pull the off-the-shelf GPTs and Gronks and all those off the shelf, and they're not bad, but they're not perfect, right? And especially in ag. And so we've been working through that behind the scenes. So even though we talk about CropWise AI, it's out there, it's only for our internal users because we are still trying to make sure that it's right at the end of the day because of those components. And so that's in the large language. Remember, generative AI, the definition is generative, right? It creates things. It's not descriptive. We need more descriptive when we talk about product recommendations in the agricultural field. And so we have to work within that. The systems will get there. I think that we've proven to ourselves they will get there. But you've got to, it was my competitor, so I'm going to tell, they have a product called Warrant, and also warrant is a legal term, right? The AI doesn't understand the difference of those things, right? It's just a word, right? But the definition can be dramatically different. And so those are the type of things you have to think through from a data and training standpoint, because accuracy is very important in ag. So yeah, we take very severe concern and caution about validating and doing this. So we have feedback mechanisms, validation mechanisms, and to the data comment earlier, you learn really quickly how good your data is when you're just asking it to give you feedback.
Well, with that, I think I'm going to give you each a chance for some final thoughts, something you really want our audience to walk away from. What should they know about your companies and their use of AI and where this industry is heading?
I think you said it earlier, Jeremy, but continue telling the stories. I'm using the customer stories of where we are getting it right and where we're getting it wrong to push that across the business to change the customer experience, whether it be from a product quality standpoint, from a demand standpoint, from where we can remove those defects or those negatives from the business. So I'm telling that story day over day across all levels of the organization. So use your platform to tell the story using AI, because I do it every day. I mean, some of my talking points I might have written with AI. So I use it every day, but I'm also summarizing those customer interactions with it. So use the technology to tell the story about how technology isn't going to take away those jobs, but is going to service the future of the business.
Yeah, I think, I'll go back to that saying, we will all overestimate what we're going to do in the next year and underestimate what happens in 10 for sure. I don't care if it's in the input manufacturing, the equipment, your ability to put articles out, right? I think that will be huge, and we'll go that route. I think the other piece I would have us all kind of think about, though, is with this technology, we need to make sure we raise all boats, in a sense. And, I'm a farmer kid, and so this is a little bit personal comment here, is we need to stop pitting ag against ag, right? It's the organic guy against the commercial guy. It's the big farm versus a little farm. Like, frankly, we need all of ag to support the consumer and the population that we need. We don't need to put big ag against small ag and different forms of it. We need all ag to come forward and step forward to really drive this, because again, you think about it, if you did this session, I bet, population with the consumer media, like, you wouldn't fit it in Northwest Arkansas, right? When you think of the Newsweeks and Time and everybody else that write articles, right? You're a small population competing against a large population of writers. And so I think of that in contrast. It's the same thing. The agronomists compete against a large consumer population. So we need all of ag to tell the positive story instead of, again, putting organic against commercial and non-organic. Like, we just need all ag to move forward.
All right, thank you very much, Morgan and Jeremy, for your comments and thoughts. I think you're both going to be able to hang around for a little bit here. We're heading into a networking break. Please join us next door in the expo for conversations with some of our sponsors and our exhibitors. We're excited to have them here with us as well. I also want to throw in a plug for the PIF raffle. I am the incoming chair of PIF. This is one of the things that makes our organization and AMS a success, and we would really love your support with that raffle. We've discussed those prizes and things earlier. You can find lots of information on the posters in the hallway. Come ask me, come ask Julie. We're happy to connect you with that information. We have one more block of breakouts after this networking break, and then tonight, just a reminder that dinner is on your own. There are some sign-up sheets at the registration desk if you would like to join a group for dinner of people that you maybe have not had a chance to meet yet. We would love for you to take advantage of that opportunity. And then tomorrow, our business meetings and awards start at 8 a.m. We've got a lot of different tracks going on, so please check the agenda and make sure you're in the room where you want to be for some of those conversations and coffee in the morning, of course. So thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day.